Please welcome Colin Boyle, Vanan Murugesan, and Marisa Kwiatkowski.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. Today's conversation is about what it means to report from communities journalists know best. Not as outside observers, but as people documenting events in their own neighborhoods, among people they know, in the places they call home. I'm joined on stage by two amazing people who engage in local news in different ways. At the far end there, you see Colin, who's been documenting events on the ground in Chicago, and Vanan, who leads a newsroom serving immigrants and communities of color in Minnesota. Together, they'll help us understand how community-rooted journalism makes things visible, how local context can shape coverage, and how this work continues long after national attention shifts. Colin, I'd like to start with you. You're the director of photography for Black Cub Chicago, serving the city that you grew up in. When the federal immigration enforcement activity increased in Chicago last fall, can you talk about what you noticed and how it felt different from what you'd experienced before?
Absolutely. So at Black Club Chicago, our mission is to cover our great hometown neighborhood by neighborhood versus having a politics beat or sports beat. Each reporter is embedded in the neighborhoods that they cover. And immediately from the start, we were noticing that neighbors were a lot more concerned. They were worried to go outside. They were sending us things they'd read online that they wanted confirmed. So it was up to us to not only just get the news, go to those press conferences, cover what's changing, going to the streets that became very quickly very quiet in a way that was reminiscent of COVID level silence on the streets. And yeah, it changed very fast. And what we noticed from the start too was it was up to us to really help confirm what we were hearing or disproving any rumor mills online. Things moved so quickly online in signal chats, on Facebook posts, tweets, blue skies, you name it. There were messages out there. So it was up to us to not chase every story, but to do our best to confirm it and cover it all on a neighborhood level.
Absolutely. Vanan, you lead Sahan Journal, which was created to serve immigrant communities in Minnesota. From that vantage point, what does this moment look like in the Twin Cities?
Thanks for the question. I want to start off by saying I understand everyone here has been seeing what's happening over in Minneapolis. A lot of people have used the words like war zone. I do want to call out, though, not every part of the city is like that. There's a lot of pockets of spaces, the commercial district, finance district, where you could, if you don't watch the news, you think everything was normal. But there's stuff going on, as we can tell. Specific neighborhoods where immigrant communities reside, they're business corridors. That's where a lot of the actions are happening. I would say school districts are disrupted, life is disrupted. Restaurants, where there are a lot of, from the service industry, there's a restaurant that we traditionally, as Sahan Journal, when we're having like a get-together lunch, we would order takeout. The restaurant could not meet our order, could not guarantee a restaurant that we normally order just because they do not have enough staff. Staff don't show up either out of fear or out of being detained. And so we see small businesses, immigrant businesses, losing either customers or their workers. So it's terribly, terribly impacted. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the amazing work that's happening on the flip side, things that are not really happening. One thing that has really made me feel inspired are these informal, what I call networks of volunteers. People rising to the occasion. I call them soccer moms that they're playing like James Bond. All of a sudden, signal channels that used to be the space for journalists or people who are trying to be secretish or spyish, like neighborhood moms are all on different signal channels, rising to the moment, volunteering their time, bringing food, groceries, rental assistance. And those stories are not often told. And I think it's very, very important for the people to hear in this audience to know that that's much as part of what's happening in Minneapolis and not just the enforcement activities.
Absolutely. One of the other things you talked about, and you touched on it briefly, but I'd love for you to just help people who may not be as fully immersed in it as you are, understand some of the dynamics with the schools as well and some of the things you've been seeing there.
Yeah. So I'll use my kids as an example. My kids, they go to a school district, St. Louis Park. St. Louis Park is known to have a heavy population of Somali immigrants. We felt like it was a matter of time before ICE enforcement activities would show up in the neighborhood. And actually, sure enough, it was just a few days ago where the school literally had a lockdown, right? No kids are allowed to go out, and some of the kids don't know why. So if you place yourself as a student, you are, first of all, you're concerned about your own safety. Second of all, you're concerned about your friends' safety and your parents. And here's another interesting dynamic as well. We've had moments where kids would come home from school and their parents would be detained earlier in the day, and they would not know what happened, right? They would find out after the fact through some Facebook group chat or someone telling them. So the level of uncertainty is unnerving for someone who's going to school. It's hard enough being a kid, right? And to know, like, wait, dad's missing. Okay, he's late for 10 minutes. He's usually late. No, wait, he's late for half an hour. No, wait, he's late for an hour. What's going on here? And so the anxiety ratchets up, can be ratcheted up. And I think that's a very, very tough way to live for a kid at school, yeah.
And obviously, as the community's navigating this, as journalists, we're navigating this as well. And this work can come with real risk, both in the moment and over the long term. Colin, when you think back on documenting these events, what did it require of you physically and emotionally over time?
Yeah, I mean, Marisa, this is something that I've covered protests. I've been shoved by police. I've been threatened by police in Chicago, and this is something I've never quite experienced before. I put together a few images just to kind of help give you visuals of what it was like on the ground level. This is outside the Broadview facility. These were protesters, and you know, I've covered protests for years. I grew up in Chicago. It's not a calm, quiet, I mean, it's a beautiful, magical city, but it's not a city known for its quietude or calmness. There's always been demonstrations there. There's always been something going on. But immediately when Operation Midway Blitz commenced in Chicago in September, that's when we really saw a change in how protesters were being treated and responded to. So this is at the Broadview ICE facility, or as close as protesters were able to get to it. This is in a suburb immediately outside of Chicago. It's been a detention center, processing facility for years, been in operation under every administration for quite some time. And that being said, people had been going there regularly to protest on Fridays, and once Midway Blitz picked up there, so that's when people began to gather there a lot more. And we were noticing immediately that federal agents were responding a lot more strongly. Violently is a word we could definitely use. And people were being fired upon, but not just protesters, the press. Earlier today, Maribel mentioned that it's now is the time to defend and stand up for the First Amendment. And it was in this moment when I really remembered and learned the hard way that the camera can only protect you so much. Anything that says that you are a member of the press, be it a helmet that says press, 2 cameras slung around me, my police-issued press credential, bag that says press, that can only protect you so much. In this moment, I was fired upon indiscriminately as if I was a protester, even though I was standing next to journalists, clearly identified. I got hit in the leg with pepper balls, which sounds light, no, they sting like hell, and it makes your skin burn after. I was wearing a respirator mask, and the tear gas actually seeped into my mask, so I was, my eyes were welling up, I was coughing a lung out, it felt like, and I was still making photos the whole time. And just to give you a visual, this is what pepper balls will do to your body. I will say, this gentleman was one of the braver ones. He stood at the front and took his shirt off and put his back to the agents and said, if I'm going to stand in the way of you firing upon all the other protesters. But they do leave welts, and it hurts like hell. So, yeah, so to kind of wrap that back up there, I've learned very quickly that the camera wasn't going to protect me, and these agents weren't going to respect our agency as journalists practicing our God-given right in America of the First Amendment. And it, of course, had an emotional toll as well. You know, I grew up in Chicago. I love the city. It's my favorite place on earth. We were going around neighborhoods that we would frequent in grade school, high school, and see buildings and landmarks and intersection and neighbors directly impacted by this uptick of immigration enforcement in our hometown. This is in Little Village, one of the most predominant Mexican neighborhoods in Chicago. You all know Mag Mile in Chicago. Their 26th Street is the second highest grossing business district in Chicago. And that street fell dead silent during Midway Blitz. This was back in October as agents were going through and taking people for their immigration status, and there was constant conflict between neighbors and Border Patrol. And it was also really bizarre because not just are we seeing our neighborhoods, but I was there when the Border Patrol did their photo op as they were wrapping up the initial part of Midway Blitz as we knew it. They went to the Bean, a location that we all know in Chicago. Well, it's technically known as the Cloud Gate, but we call it the Bean. And they went there just after sunrise, did a photo op, and outside of the Bean, they, instead of saying cheese, they said 1, 2, 3, Little Village, and they all smiled for the camera. So as a Chicagoan, you know, it's our job as journalists to cover whatever is happening in Chicago, but as someone who's lived in Chicago my whole life, it definitely had an emotional toll seeing places that we know, places that we love being used for immigration enforcement. One, I mean, they're doing their jobs, and you have your thoughts on it as you will, but seeing our hometown used for the backdrop of their Hollywood-style, editorialized hype reels and social media videos was very jarring to see.
Yeah. Colin, you've talked about both the physical and the emotional components of that and what you personally faced as you were in those moments. But you weren't the only one that was experiencing those things from a journalistic perspective. Can you just briefly talk about the action that Black Club Chicago and some others took to try and help protect you as you were navigating this coverage?
Absolutely, yes. I mean, my experience is just the bottom of what a lot of journalists had gone through. There was a journalist who was arrested for practicing his First Amendment right. There was a journalist who was shot in the face point blank with a pepper ball round, leaving a large wound. Other journalists had been hit. You know, we had baton rounds, which are like rubber bullets, foam bullets that are about the size of your forearm, whizzing past our heads. And it got to the point where we didn't feel safe to practice our job. So fellow newsrooms and fellow journalists with the Chicago Headline Club got together to file suit against the federal government so that we could practice our First Amendment right and do our job safely. And that actually resulted in a temporary restraining order, which was eventually dropped once the agents left Chicago en masse.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sorry to go off script here, but just wondering why Little Village? I'm not familiar with Chicago.
So Little Village is the neighborhood that has a very dense and very historic Mexican community that Border Patrol consistently went back to time and time again to conduct their immigration enforcement, especially in the caravan formation that they did.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I was just curious.
You are allowed.
Okay. We're journalists. We're meant to ask questions. That's our job.
I love off script.
Okay.
Coming to you, I know that, you know, thinking about not just physically protecting your team at Sahan Journal, but also making sure that their mental health is protected as they're navigating this moment right now, is something that you've thought a lot about. Can you talk a little bit about the work you guys have been doing in that space?
Sure. Thanks for asking that question. Yeah, you know, I appreciated what you shared, Colin. Colin talked a little bit about what it means to go out on the field, and I'm going to share a little bit about what it means to send someone out in the field. One of the, I'm going to call it a benefit, but one of the things that we were able was that Minneapolis was a city that the search would occur later in the year, right? And we had the opportunity to learn from other cities. And I had the benefit of connecting with Seamus and other editors around the country that has been experiencing this, and they've been very, very helpful. Seamus, I don't know if you're in this crowd here. I just want to, oh, there you are.
There he is.
Thanks, man. really, it's a sobering conversation, but he was so helpful, and it allowed us to quickly, things as simple as funders will very quickly to give us money. Hey, but have you ever gone to Amazon to purchase a gas mask? Like what model? Like what makes sense, right? It's so weird. And so people like newsrooms that have encountered us has given us the support that we need in that way. And I want to talk a little bit about the dynamic that a Sahan Journal reporter would encounter. So for those who don't know, Sahan Journal covers immigrants, but we are also consist of reporters who are from the community. So a lot of our reporters are immigrants themselves. And so one of the dynamics that we noticed was that, okay, you have the normal First Amendment rights question, right? And so we've also had the benefit of a pro bono First Amendment lawyer. So, right, this person gave us their phone number and their name. We have it Sharpied on our lap. Not we, the reporters, have it Sharpied in their hand. But then there was this question, wait, if I'm arrested, did they arrest me because I'm an immigrant, or is it because I'm a reporter doing my job, right? So there was this strange dynamic here that I think that has to be acknowledged, and I wanted to call out all the other immigrant newsrooms around the country that are doing this brave work themselves. I don't know if they're in the crowd here. I'm part of a coalition of immigrant newsrooms, Documented, El Timpano, Conecta Arizona, Cicero Independiente. Yep. They put their lives on the line to do the work that they feel is really important. And we have to acknowledge that there is a secondary level of risk out there. And, I did talk about this in a post that I wrote back. When you're an immigrant reporter covering something like this, it's a little bit like, I try to use the analogy of a surgeon really good at your job, but you're doing surgery on your mom. Or like you're writing a story about a murder, but it was on the street where you learn how to ride your bike, right? And so, yes, you're doing your job and you're doing it well, but it's never just doing your job. That's always under stuff, whatever. I don't know what the therapy language is, but there's something else going on over there, right? And so, no disrespect to the profession. But the point is, this is real. This is real, and we had the benefit of funders understanding our perspective, and we've developed a mental health wellness program. And so we are piloting that right now. We've received some funding, and so we're putting in stuff. And I told my team, we're not going to we have good PTOs, but this is not about PTOs. This is about how do you do your job in a way that's good for your mental health. And so we're piloting a few things right now. Thank you. I'll tell my team that everyone thought it was a good idea too. So, no, because they were like, what? Who's going to fund mental health, man? I'm like, bro, we raised money for that. So that's a good idea. So we're learning. So we've given stuff. We gave a small stipend, $150. Go and get some to-go food. Go and get a spa. Go and get someone to clean your house. Like whatever it is, because we need those kinds of things to be okay for us to do our job. And so, happy to talk more to the crowd, but that's one of the things that we're experimenting with.
Absolutely.
Yep.
And as you just spoke to so eloquently, Sahan was built to fill a gap in Minnesota's news ecosystem. Can you talk about how that shaped the way that your newsroom thinks about coverage during moments like this?
Yep. Thank you for that question. And I'm going to do this. There we go. So I actually had to confront that question head on early this year in January. And so this is a photo of enforcement activity in one of the densest African-American neighborhoods in Minneapolis, right? This is a photo that we took, but folks here have seen photos like this before from other outlets, right? And so this was, as a leader, I was suffering an existential crisis because Sahan's value proposition to our reader, to our community, is that we cover issues that matters to immigrants exclusively. So this is our playground, this is our niche, and we do this really well. Now, all of a sudden, I have Al Jazeera, not just the local guys, Al Jazeera, Guardian, BBC, doing the job that we are meant to do, right? Doing it, job sometimes better. And so I was like, man, how do we compete with these guys, right? And my editor-in-chief ever so wisely said, Vanan, we were not created for this moment. Sahan existed for the moments before and the moments after, right? And so over the years, Sahan has existed since 2019, and over the years, our commitment and our dedication to the immigrant communities have built trust among them, and so we've been able to cover some of the stories that I would like to share over here. So it's a really cool story here. This is a weird sight, guys, in Minneapolis. You'll see cars like just stranded on the streets because if someone gets detained, right, you can see the evidence of the windows being smashed. The guy will go, and then the car's just there. And the car will sit there for a while. And so this gentleman here runs a tow truck company, and he will move the cars either for free or at a low cost. Because if the car gets impounded, you're going to have to pay the city a lot of money. So this is a story that I'm really, really proud of that we covered. It shows like what people can do when a moment calls for them. I love this. This is another great story here that we took. I'm not sure if you guys realize this, but the whistle has become a symbol of resistance in Minneapolis, right? If you see an enforcement activity that you're blowing the whistle. And this is a really, really cool story about a group of Somali women that decided to band together and say, enough is enough, we need to be up front to take care of our community. And so they volunteered their time to do this, to be an observer, to learn about their rights, to educate their community about their rights, to make tea and sambusas for the protest. When Minneapolis protests, it was minus 20 degrees, guys. So just so you know, I don't even take out trash if it's minus 20 out. And this guy stood up for hours. And so these are stories that we tell now, right? Because of our ability, of the trust that we've engendered. And you asked the question about what next. And that's the piece that took me a while to figure out. And so before I had an opportunity to say this yesterday. Attention is not commitment. And right now, there's a lot of attention in Minneapolis, but that is not necessarily committed. And so I asked the question, what is Sahan committed to in moments like this with the trust that we have, right? And so I'm about to say something. I'm about to tell a few things and try to not commit the cardinal sin of an executive director telling reporters what stories we're going to cover in the future. But this is where I'm going to go with it. So this is a school. Renee Good's kids go to this school. Renee Good, as you know, was murdered a few weeks ago in Minneapolis. Very quickly after the murder, right-wingers started to attack, make threats to the school. This is just one school. Throughout Minneapolis, you have schools that kids go missing, they're detained, and they don't come back. What does it feel to be a kid that has been detained, and then you come home, come back to the school? What does it feel for you if you are a student, your friend got detained, and then you come back, and they come back, or they don't come back? There's issues around school budgeting. What does that mean? What does that mean for a school when a big portion of your students go missing, right? This other photo here is a family of mixed status, immigrant status here. You could see someone wearing an anklet. We are curious about the financial repercussions of someone being detained, right? What does life look like for them? What does employment look like for them? And so these are all questions that we are asking. They are asking themselves. Their friends and neighbors are asking themselves. We believe these questions are important for lawmakers and policymakers to understand the impact of moments like this. And that is the commitment that Sahan is making. Because these stories, these questions will live long after the national attention goes away. And our commitment is that we will uncover the stories for people to understand what's happening.
Thank you for sharing that. Both of you have talked about the importance of collaboration over competition in moments like this. Colin, starting with you, can you talk about how that came to life through your coverage?
Absolutely. In J school, they always tell you, get the scoop, get the story out first. Felt like there was always an encouragement not to help other colleagues because there might be competition. And in Chicago, we are a huge market, but we're a very collaborative market. And I've always admired that I've been very lucky to be born and raised in Chicago. And from my my only job, I've always been working at Block Club since I graduated college, but at Block Club and around Block Club, newsrooms in Chicago are collaborating and working with each other. And that's something that I didn't experience in other cities where I did internships, and it's really, really appreciated in moments, especially like right now. In Midway Blitz, there would be times where we would go out and photojournalists, and we would be following tips from Facebook groups or Signal chats about where Border Patrol may or may not be and where they may be doing their immigration enforcement. And in those moments, it was really impressive going out with other photojournalists. We would share each other's phone locations and keep in contact as safely as we could because, remind you, we were driving. So it'd be phone calls, quick calls, if you had a reporter in the car, they would check the other photographer's location.
And to be clear, from other outlets, not from
yes,
Block
other
Club
outlets,
Chicago.
yeah. So I still have the Sun-Times' photo editor's location on my phone. God forbid something happens, we know where each other are. And that's something that I just never thought would arise in this industry. And we all were able to make incredibly strong images. We were all able to keep our audience informed, hold federal agents accountable, showing what they're doing, putting that in our newspapers, online, et cetera. And also we were able to stay a little bit safer because there's safety in numbers, and we were all there together, documenting what's happening, showing how our city is being impacted by the uptick in immigration enforcement, and also we were there to stand up for each other if something were to arise or someone were to get hurt.
Thank you. Thank you both for everything that you've shared as we've been talking about doing this important work in moments like this. I'd love to just sort of close with, what keeps you going when the work is hard?
Chicago, our neighbors. It's the best city in the world. And it's a city that came out of the fire, for the love of God. That city burnt to the ground and became the host of the World's Fair 20 years later. Come on. This city has gone through hell and high water, and we're going to come back even stronger. And it's up to us as journalists to tell the stories, not just of the bad, but what our neighbors want to know about, what our neighbors are asking about. And so as we're going through all this, I'm looking forward to showing up to community meetings, be it as something as boring as city council or drama about a bike lane that we covered damn well at Block Club, and everything in between. That's what's getting me through this moment, is our neighbors and their trust in us at Block Club to read our information, speak to our reporters when things go awry, and give us tips when something is fishy.
That was very, very, very inspiring.
That was off the cusp. None of that's in my notes here.
Yeah. Two things. It's been tough. It's been rough, and I'm kind of in the thick of things too. We're weeks 5, 6, whatever you want to call it, and I will not. Well, there are tough times. There are days where I'm woe is me, Debbie Downer. But then I just, it's nothing compared to the folks that we're covering. The examples that I gave are not hypothetical situations. Literally, sometimes kids come home and they don't know what happened to their parents. That is just nuts. That is just it's a situation that should never ever happen to someone. And this is happening on a regular basis. And so I can hear my father's voice in the background in my head, just shut up, man. This is nothing. You're going through nothing. Those guys are suffering. Get up and do your job. And I think, I don't know how many, that's a very immigrant experience here. Just get up, And I toned down my father's accent, so you just put in the Indian man's accent. You shut up, get up, work, something along those lines. So you'd be surprised how much that has run my life. But the part that I wanted to, is this thing
Go
missing?
back one, yep.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, but it's not showing up though.
It'll come on.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
There we go. So this is my team, and the team was having lunch last week, and it was bought by Block Club Chicago. Yeah.
First time hearing about this.
Throughout this rough times, we've had people reach out to us, donors, our readers, our members, but the coolest thing is other newsrooms saying, hey, what do you need? How can we help you? Blah, blah, blah. And these lunches, bro, it's amazing. It's really good. Brought people together. It's a great photo. The camaraderie between newsrooms in these moments were not expected, but was definitely the right fuel we needed to continue with the work. And so thank you, Block Club Chicago. Thank you, Seamus. But thank you, all of you who've been supporting our work.
All right. Okay. Thank you both so much for being here and for sharing your experiences. For those of you who are interested in exploring this topic further, there is a related event tomorrow night from 7 to 9 hosted by The Atlantic. That program will include a conversation with independent journalist Georgia Fort, whom you heard Maribel mention earlier, who is facing federal charges. So thank you again, and we appreciate the conversation.
Thank you for having us.